This is your Chargers linebacker, Daiyan Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning into the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein.
We're back.
Yeah. We're back. Yeah, if you were one of the Chargers fans that ended up having plans on Sunday afternoon around 1:30, many people would probably say you're one of the lucky ones, as the Chargers suffered their worst defeat of the season to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Apropos.
That's what live podcasting does for you. But apropos, considering that the Chargers lost to the Buccaneers, worst beatdown of the season, 40-17. Dan, this one was not pretty even from the jump. The Chargers essentially failed in all three facets of this game, could not get anything going outside of one half to the next. It literally was polar opposite. The offense was non-existent in the second half. The defense did not show up. And many of these questions that we have talked about, you and I specifically, about the offensive inconsistencies throughout the entire season, you want to look at it in a microcosm over the last month more specifically. It's been very, very rough sledding for the Chargers. And now you pick the worst time with 3 games remaining, a divisional matchup on the horizon against the Denver Broncos, to have one of these performances, especially coming off that tough loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. And you're at home and you have this type of a performance. There's no moral victories today from Dan Wolkenstein and I. There's no mincing words today from Dan Wolkenstein and I. It's not going to be pretty. And we know that Chargers fans are also in their feelings as well, as we have plenty of voicemails to get into from the Chargers Unleashed hotline to share and spread your feelings about what your current feeling is about this team and where they are currently at and what can they possibly do to get things back on the right track. But Dan Wolkenstein, you were there on Sunday. You made the drive out to SoFi. How was the atmosphere?
Have you ever been to a party that turned into not a party? That's what this felt like. Chargers fans showed out. Lots of fun. By far, huge Chargers home game. Crowd was fantastic. But by the time that second half started, it was crickets in there. And for good reason. The Chargers team on both sides got their asses kicked. And there's no mincing words. I think everyone on that Chargers team would say it. And I don't know if it's lack of preparation, which I don't think that's the case. It looks to me like more lack of execution, coupled with whatever the heck is going on with that offense. Not good. He went up against a juggernaut Tampa Bay offense, and they got some dudes, but still awful execution from individuals at certain times that caused some massive breakdowns that kind of opened the floodgates. And Chargers special teams, bad. Offense, bad. Defense, bad in that second half, and it resounded in a 30-0 run for the Bucs. Chargers get blown out 40-17. That's all she wrote. And now Chargers, no real silver linings here, because 4 days later, having to play the Broncos on Thursday, short week, banged up. Voicemails going crazy, Jake. We'll get to those as we go through here. Kind of use that as our North Star to discuss and go through our feelings. But they're not great, Bob. They're not great, and we're going to get through all of them. Huge disappointment. No way around it. Jake, before we get to voicemails and kind of the high-level takeaways from this game, let's pay the bills, talk about our friends.
I want to remind everybody that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every single week for your chance to weekly prizes and a share of up to $200K. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker or on one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today. That's betonline.ag. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Tons of voicemails. You know the drill. Chargers Unleashed hotline, 323-902-7586. Again, 323-902-7586. Let's kick this thing off, Jake, with the first voicemail. I kind of liked what we did last week. I didn't really pre-screen these.
Oh, boy.
Cross your fingers.
If anybody
First
remembers
voicemail.
last week, this should be a hoot.
First voicemail on the hotline.
Hey!
Is this the first one? Is this really the first one?
All I know is pain!
I just had to play that for last week. Because
I was like, if that seriously was the same person that was calling in from last week, I'm sure that
same vibes.
If he was calling in this week, I could only imagine. I mean, if that was his pain from last week against the Chiefs, I could only imagine what it was if he actually was calling in. But let's hear the official first voicemail, please.
Hello, DP Kick Rocks here. I got called into work today. What a fucking bummer that was. I'm actually
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Starting off hot.
kind of glad I'm fucking here. I am fucking embarrassed.
Oh, no, Jake. This is,
Yeah.
I feel some anger coming through the microphone here.
I'm in fucking, I mean, our O-line from what I watched before I left work is just free 99. You need some stats, you call up the Chargers, baby, because we'll give them to you. I mean, fucking 40-17? I am embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. I felt embarrassed calling you guys today. I don't even think we should talk about it. I mean, dude, if we do this against the Broncos next week, if we get blown out, I've been telling you guys I'm losing it. I would have lost it if they lose on Thursday. If they lose on Thursday, I've lost it. It's gone. It's all gone.
Brace yourself.
I'm fucking one with the wind. I mean, absolutely insane. You guys, I always say you guys have a good day, but I'm not having a fucking good day. All right?
Have a good day, sir.
I mean, I don't think anybody was having a good day. Yesterday,
Nope.
Sunday afternoon, I don't think anybody was having a good day.
Or a good week.
As we try to flush this, go through the aftermath of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, we're also going to try to point in the direction of what Thursday night means. We'll end up doing our full Thursday night preview tomorrow for the show, but we'll obviously sprinkle a little bit of tidbits into it because it's big. Dan, when you look at this as a whole, Chargers have lost 3 of their last 4. And in the one game that they won, their offense literally did not come to play. You had to rely on your defense against the Atlanta Falcons to win that game. This has been such an inconsistency as it relates to this offensive output that they cannot put 4 quarters of football together. And much like this game, you welcome back Ladd McConkey. He immediately is the focal point of the offense in the first drive. Looks good, goes down, scores a touchdown. You had to, considering how easily the Tampa Bay Buccaneers moved the ball down to score on their opening drive. So it's 7-7. You end up getting a couple turnovers in the first half. You're able to take the lead 17-14. Quentin Johnston has himself another touchdown on a very, very nice play. And you're feeling confident because here was the issue against the Chiefs, that you couldn't get the offense going fast enough, that it didn't take until the second half for your offense to show up. But I don't know what was said at halftime in this game against the Buccaneers. Maybe nobody should have said anything. I don't know which one would have worked, truly, because how you go 0 for 6 on the day, on third down. I understand Justin Herbert is nursing his injury, but still, Justin Herbert before halftime had 127 yards and 2 touchdowns and looked like, despite the ankle injury, was able to distribute the ball pretty well. Your running game was non-existent. 32 yards of rushing on the day. Couldn't get anything going there, which is absolutely wild. But Dan, we talk so much about this defense and being able to keep them in games. And if it is a situation that you like to say, Dan, the first 1 to 20 wins, and that's how this type of situation to be played, they have essentially teetered on collapse for the better part of the last month. So close. You look at that Baltimore game. Offense couldn't get anything going. They were stopped. Baltimore was able to run it down your throat and run up the score. Falcons game, they were able to mask those offensive deficiencies because they were able to make the plays that they did. Kansas City, again, one half of football is not enough to beat the Chiefs, unfortunately. And then this game to come after that, and you allow 506 total yards, 8 plays that go over 20 yards, 3 of those go for touchdowns. It just looked easy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they scored on 5 consecutive drives. There is no excuse for that anymore. And all of the struggles that we have talked about with this offense getting in a rhythm and getting momentum and having to start fast or play more than one half of football officially came to a head on Sunday. You cannot win a playoff game with the way that this offense has had its deficiencies, more so over the last month. But essentially, we've been talking about this for the better part of the season. And certain days they're able to overcome it. But Sunday against the Buccaneers was literally the microcosm of the bigger issue that has plagued this offense throughout the entirety of the year.
Darth Dan's back. Tell you
There
that
we
much.
go.
That's
Love
damn
it.
sure. Look, I have some feelings on this one, Jake. First off, I feel like Greg Roman's gotten a lot of leash this season. And we all kind of knew what was to be expected. And we knew what was pros and cons of that style that Greg Roman brings. What kind of voodoo magic is with this Chargers team to where it takes going to the Chargers to make a rushing attack from Greg Roman look abysmal, in which every other stop he's been at every other year has been top 5, top 3, top 1, not 2. And your stat line against the Buccaneers, Jake, a grand total of 11 carries for 32 yards. 11 carries for an offense that has a hobbled quarterback, an interior offensive line that can't do bleep. What are we doing? What does this offense do well right now? Honestly, it's literally a Ladd and Herbert show, and they can't even set up Herbert correctly. Now, again, lots of blame to throw around here. This was collectively a terrible game. Defense looked bad for that second half specifically. Although, again, Tarheeb Still looked great first half. Like, Tarheeb Still's good. Tarheeb Still second half, awful missed tackle on Mike Evans at the end. That gave him that 50-something yard touchdown. Justin Herbert wasn't great. He wasn't terrible by any means, but he wasn't as good as he would have liked. Missed execution there, especially in that first drive in the second half. Quentin looked pretty good, given his targets. Eric Tomlinson, terrible blocking. Stone Smart looked good. Otherwise, everything was bad. There was no coaching adjustments. There was no execution for the most part. And that's just not what we're expecting when we see this Chargers team. And I said this on social media the night of the loss. What is most disappointing of this game for me is this was kind of the first time that it felt like I had been hoodwinked from the coaching staff. You know, you're expecting this slow, steady rise to get as good as you can be by the time playoff comes, and steady improvements, and you're building on things, and you're stacking bricks. The whole thing crumbled. No one can say that anybody realistically looked improved, collectively or individually or coaching. And so what are we doing? If you're hanging your hat on a defense that gives up 500 yards, and you're hanging your hat on an offense with Justin Herbert who's injured, hobbled, and has no interior offensive line to help protect, you can't run the ball. What are we doing? So this is infuriating. And again, I'm not going to be privileged of the moment, because at the outset of the season, I think I've had 10 wins. I think you had 11. They're right there. They're right there. So they are as expected if you look at it from a macro view. But this is not how I expected to get to this point. And again, some of that is, does it really matter? No. A win's a win's a win. You get to the playoffs, see what happens. But this is ugly. And I'm specifically, you can have a clunker. Like, I get it. Sometimes it's just nothing goes your way, is what it is. But this offense is looking ugly, especially in the second half. And when you have a quarterback like that, and you're just leaving him out to dry, and either he is holding on to it too long, which means that you're not coaching him enough to say, let the ball go, or you're not scheming up quick plays where he's not getting hit, or your receivers or folks aren't catching or blocking appropriately or the scheme isn't good, whatever it is. I know that, J.K. Dobbins is out. I get it. You could be better than that. And that's the bottom line, is this offense is simply not that bad roster-wise to be this bad week over week over week for half of the football game or more. When you have a top 5-ish quarterback in Justin Herbert, you got offensive rookie of the year, arguably 2 of them in Ladd McConkey and Joe Alt, another bona fide offensive tackle in Rashawn Slater. Like, you can figure it out. Look at the teams that this Chargers team is around. We look at second half scoring, efficiency, red zone percentages. It's abysmal. You're talking about teams who are lottery picks, who are doing better than the Chargers right now. That was a bad one. And we talk about maybe the team needs to flush it. Maybe they need to not even look at it at all, just chalk it up to a bad loss. Bad loss, fine. That's a tough time to have a bad loss on a short week when you're going up against a defense who is very good, who have looked very good, who are currently ahead of you in the standings. The only silver lining, the only saving grace from this entire week was the fact that the Colts and the Dolphins lost. That's the only thing that made this weekend okay. And in spite of all of this, the Chargers still have an opportunity to clinch a playoff spot this week. But they're far from that right now. And I apologize for the tangent. I don't think I feel any better.
No, but maybe after a few more voicemails and a little bit more ranting, maybe we'll come out of this a little bit better.
Maybe. Next voicemail.
No promises.
Next voicemail.
Hey, this is Alex, currently in Killeen, Texas. Was watching the game at Buffalo Wild Wings with my 4 boys. Pretty upset watching them essentially just quit.
Pretty upset? He sounds so calm. He must be in front of his 4 boys, because there's no way I'd be that calm, cool, collected with this voicemail.
On that game. Maybe call me a fair weather fan, but...
we need positivity incoming. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like the season's over.
You spoke too soon, Dan. You spoke too soon. Whoops.
Plot twist.
Got just a little bit ahead of yourself, didn't you?
If that's the way we're going to continue to play. So hopefully Herbert can get back and the team can recover for the Denver game, but we'll see. Keep our fingers crossed.
Hopium. Optimism. Only takes you so far if you're not tethered to reality. I've learned this the hard way. If they continue down this road, is the season over? No. Because, again, put it in perspective.
Mathematically, it's not over.
No, but it's not, because they're going up against 2 awful teams to end the season. And even if they play awful against great teams and good against bad teams, they're still going to be in the playoffs. Mathematically, they are in if they just do what they're supposed to do and win the games they're supposed to win. Even if they lose the games they're supposed to lose and win the games they're supposed to win, you're good. But yeah, they're not going anywhere in the playoffs, I tell you that much. Nowhere fast if they continue down this route.
See, I know last week when we were previewing this game on the live show, even after that loss against Kansas City, I said that my opinion was these next 2 games against Tampa Bay and Denver at the time were must-win games. Why? Because I didn't want to be in a position to where you had to win the last 2. Just control what you can control. Get yourself in.
Which you technically still don't have to win the last 2. But
I get it.
You have to.
But I would rather take care of business, win, not rely on anybody else to lose, to lock up a playoff spot, ask questions later. And this Denver game now is going to look a hell of a lot different than it was in week 6. A hell of a lot different, because Bo Nix, I get it, had a bad game against the Colts, has had technically a bad 2 weeks, really statistically for him. But he is a much different quarterback than what the Chargers went up against in week 6. You may or may not have Patrick Surtain back for this game. The projected practice report for him, even despite the ankle injury, was a full practice. So things are trending positively for him. And their defense,
on one leg.
Their defense is playing extremely well. Now, what the Chargers have had to go up against over the past several weeks, do you trust what you've seen from an offensive output against those defenses? Because it's on shaky ground right now unless something changes. And the last month has been really tough.
At best, you've had 2 quarters per game. At best.
That's not going to get it done. That's not going to get it done. And if you find yourself in a losing situation against Denver on Thursday, the temperature is going to ratchet up very, very quickly. I don't care who your last 2 opponents are. I really do not.
Any given Sunday or Saturday.
It's the bigger picture of everything that has taken place through 15 games played, wherever we're at now. 14 games played. It's the bigger picture of that. And the fact that we're now this deep in the season, and it's the same issues collectively that have not been able to get corrected. This was one of the bigger issues that I had with the Brandon Staley era.
And this is thinking there are shades of that era that are feeling right now where it's like, what are we?
Yes. Now, it's different from the standpoint that, yes, this is Harbaugh's first year. You know, he's still building things. He's going to learn things better. This team is going to get better. I have faith in that.
And they've won 8 games already. So,
yes, despite what they don't have offensively, they are still in a position to where they have won 8 games. Where traditionally, you look at that game against Atlanta, you look at that games against Cincinnati. Those are the games that the old Chargers regimes are not winning.
Yep.
I get that. But it's now developing into a trend where I have similar feelings to how I felt against the Brandon Staley era, because we would hear certain comments and we would be talked about for certain preparation and rebounding, and we just wouldn't see it. Nothing would change from those 3 years, no matter who the offensive coordinator was, whether it was Joe Lombardi or Kellen Moore. It was the same old story from an offensive and defensive standpoint from week to week, and we got excuse after excuse after excuse. Now, I'm not sitting here that Greg Roman is talking excuses or that anybody is trying to give anybody a free pass. But when you've gone this long with this much offensive inconsistencies, even from how efficient Justin Herbert is playing, just specifically from the stat line for the season, which is pretty good when it comes to not turning the football over, how is it you're still falling into these type of issues?
No.
As Dan mentioned, the interior of your offensive line in terms of run blocking is pretty damn bad. There's a reason why. There's a reason, yes, but there's a reason why the most successful runs that you've seen to the Chargers have gone to the left side. That's because it's Rashawn Slater's side. And it makes up a little bit for what Daiyan Johnson has or has not done. But Bradley Bozeman, Trey Pipkins, when it's come to pass rushing or pass blocking and run blocking, it hasn't been there. And
Zion hasn't been there. Sawyer hasn't been there. Pipkins hasn't been there. Bozeman hasn't been there.
This was the second highest pass rush rate that Justin Herbert has faced in his entire career. Todd Bowles essentially dared the Chargers to throw on him, and he couldn't do it. Why? Because the Chargers kept scheming up plays for Justin Herbert to drop back and push it deep.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
There was I can't remember specifically what drive it was, Dan, but it was the drive in which Justin Herbert ended up throwing his second interception of the season. It was a 2nd and 9 play. They're backed up against their own end zone, and Justin Herbert's throwing deep, and he's got the check down right there that could have easily gotten a first down across the middle of the field. I don't understand what's happening, but I know that he probably would have seen it if he had more time to throw the damn ball.
You are throwing Herbert out to the wolves.
Yes.
Seemingly every game that matters, when it matters most in games, the wolves are chasing.
Yes.
And you are just like backing up, hoping. That's your strategy.
Being in 3rd and long, unfortunately, over the past month has been a negative trend for this Chargers team. They cannot get any positive yards as far as a run game or a pass game going on 1st and 2nd downs. These are things that Greg Roman has addressed publicly in terms of getting better on. They have not happened yet. And when you live in 3rd and long and when you get yourself into a 3-score hole, I don't care who your running back is, but the running game at that point is going to go secondary as far as the offensive schemes go.
11 carries in a Greg Roman offense with a hampered quarterback.
Yes. Not only can you not run the ball, period, but when you get yourself in that much of a hole, you have to throw it to try to catch up. But the defense already knows that that's coming. So what do? They're just going to pin their ears back and come after you, which
but it's
Todd
not like we
Bowles
can
did
give them
all
that
afternoon.
excuse. If we can't even give them that excuse, they were up at halftime.
Oh yeah, it's not an excuse.
No, but I'm saying like, okay, they're trailing from behind. Fine. What happened the first half?
I haven't even gotten to the defensive side of the ball yet, but that's part of my point, Dan.
And I get it. Like, it's a collective effort because when your defense is giving up massive plays, quick drives, your offense is going 3 and outs, punts, turnovers. Like, it's a recipe for disaster, and that snowballs. Like, I get it. There was complimentary football in the first half and whatever the opposite of it was in the second half. And it was awful. We'll get the defense here, Jake. 323-902-7586 is your number to the Chargers Unleashed voicemail. Next voicemail, Jake.
Fellas, I'm a lifelong Chargers fan since the 70s. Just flew over from the East Coast. My first Charger game.
Oh, God.
Oh, no. Pour one out.
So far, and what a disappointment.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. There were so many country songs about heartbreak and breakups that are pretty apropos for this one.
Good things, my time is almost up. But we got to do something with that offensive play calling. We're going to get our best asset killed. We got to do some screens. We got to run through, pass the ball to the backs coming out of the backfield. We got to get the running game going. We got to do something. Or Herbert's not going to make it to next year.
You want to take the lead on this one, Dan? Go ahead.
I think that's what's frustrating to me is when you have the crown jewel, as Jim Harbaugh says. And, some of this is on Justin as well. He's not perfect, and he has some blame as well. I think he has kept it too long at times. And if there is something where the scheme is not working, I would like to think that Justin Herbert now has enough voice to be like, damn it, we're not doing this. So, that said, I don't understand how this staff believes that this scheme, or that scheme specifically for that week, was best for Justin and his health, or for the efficiency of this offense, and for the longevity of the season. I don't understand how it could check any of those 3 boxes if that's what their plan was. And you can say, oh, well, the roster isn't great. I get all of that. But you can scheme around roster issues, especially when you have a bona fide quarterback and a wide receiver who's always open. And you have 2 tackles who are good. If you have a brain trust with those 3 things, like, you should be able to do something with that. How many times have we seen Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes? Look at the receivers that Patrick Mahomes has had over this run. Like, they have not been good. He's had Kelsey, who sometimes looks great and is used. Sometimes he's not. But they're going to, like, Noah Gray and guys that you have not really heard of. They get DeAndre Hopkins, sure. But before that, it's like, he's winning in spite of all of that. Now, it's a collective unit, for sure. It's not just him. It's not just the offense, defense, special teams. I get it. You have enough to look better than that. Like, that was bad. And so, yeah, you're seeing Herbert hobbled. You liked Heineke coming out there because you're like, wave the white flag. Like, what are we doing? This is going nowhere except bad. But that was embarrassing. The callers are right. It was embarrassing.
It was one of the more glaring sites of just lack of adjustment to what was happening from the Buccaneers defensively, Dan, as you kind of touched on. I believe there was one screen pass that was schemed up, and of course, when Kimani Vidal gets it and runs for a first down, there's a penalty, brings it back. But the Bucs are coming with 7 almost every single down, especially on third down. But you're still scheming for Justin Herbert to drop back and throw it deep? Obviously, you have to in 3rd and 10s. Maybe not throw it 20 yards downfield, but he's got to throw it at some point. But it's just the scheme. Tom Brady did this type of, it was schemed up for him to negate opposing pass rushers all the time. Get the ball, dump it off. Get the ball, short slant and go. Get the ball, get it out of your hands. To negate the pass rush, to keep the defense honest.
You were up 17-10 in this game.
I didn't see anything like that from Greg Roman in terms of, especially when you have a quarterback that is not 100%, that is on a hobbled ankle. And especially after the first sack that he took, Dan, the one that he was actually down on the field for a minute before he got back up, I would have thought that would have been at least the warning to say, look, either you're going to make adjustments at halftime in terms of getting your running game going better, or if not, how do you still get around this? You scheme it up. You have a player in 15 who didn't see a pass, by the way, go to him until 3 minutes left in the third quarter, when he was a focal point of your opening drive. I don't understand that.
In the second half? Yeah.
Yes. And maybe that was the Buccaneers doubling him. Great. If that was the case, then who's in single coverage? Who do you find? And if they're not open, then how is it that you're scheming them up? Because it damn sure isn't anything to get open quickly or to negate the opposing team's pass rush that was clearly getting through and getting penetration and getting after Justin Herbert. It was just one of the more bigger lack of awareness halves that I have seen from Greg Roman this entire season. And it came to a head badly for them.
Next voicemail on the hotline.
Hey guys, 30 unanswered points. This was an absolute shellacking. I think we really saw the lack of talent that we have on both sides of the ball. Of course, we have talented players, but I think one of the main talking points that we've always discussed is just needing another year or two to get more talent for this team. 30 unanswered points is inexcusable. Again, Greg Roman is just giving us more and more reasons to really question his ability to develop an offense in a 2024 NFL. We saw those replays numerous times. Wide receivers are within 5 yards of one another. He plays as if the field is, 15 yards wide versus being 22.5 yards wide, which is, I think, how wide it is. Anyway, and then Jesse Minter, I think he couldn't get any interior pressure, which just opened up too many opportunities for the Bucs. And the last bit of feedback I'll give is I was disappointed in Harbaugh's game management of today. I think a lot of us talk about his decisions to punt in certain scenarios. I think that surfaced here today. I don't necessarily think I was opposed to him punting when they were up 17-10 on the 4th and 16 on the Buccaneers' 42-yard line.
4th and 6.
However, to punt there and then try to be aggressive with 28 seconds left before the end of the half, it just doesn't really show consistency in his game planning.
And it doesn't help when your punter skies it out of the end zone and you get a net of like 20 yards and a punt. If I knew that, I'm going for it every single time.
I think that was another area that raised some questions here. Big game next Thursday. It's actually probably better that the Colts lost as far as just removing them from the picture and just focusing on the Broncos for the purposes of the 6 or 7 seed. But I guess we got to bounce back. But yeah, after today's game, I'm not terribly confident that this Chargers team is going to make a lot of noise in the playoffs. They don't seem to really play that well against high-level competition. Thanks a lot.
Dan, let's talk about the defense for a second here.
Oh, boy.
We talked about it in the preview going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what you needed to do. They were coming into this game with a good running attack with a 4th-round rookie in Bucky Irving and Rashad White to pair him. And it was a good little 1-2 back system that they have going on. On top of that, the Buccaneers were one of the fastest starting teams in the league offensively in terms of putting up points. 3rd highest scoring team in the NFL in terms of overall points. Mike Evans has his best game of the year. 9 catches, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dan, the biggest thing that was glaring throughout, this was obviously and this was even before the Bucs made an adjustment to go run heavy in the second half. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Tuli, and Bud Dupree seemingly were non-existent in this game. The best player on your team defensively was Poona Ford. Really, that was it in terms of someone that was making noise from one half to the next. But this is coming off of a game in which you hit Patrick Mahomes the second most that he's ever been hit in his entire career. The pressure that you were putting on Patrick Mahomes, and you come back off of a game like that and your pass rush is gone, which of course affects everything else because Graham Barton and Tristan Wirfs and the rest of that Tampa Bay offensive line, they owned you in the trenches throughout that game. Baker Mayfield was able to escape on a couple of runs. You lost containment on certain big runs for him that he was able to escape on. Of course, when you're not able to rush the quarterback, it creates a monument of problems in the secondary. Hence, the 8 plays over 20 yards, 3 of them being for touchdowns. Breakdowns in the secondary, more specifically with Jasir Taylor early in that opening drive for Tampa Bay. Once Cam Hart, unfortunately, goes out of the game with a concussion when he was trying to make a play on an interception again, that seemingly just changed everything, much like it did in the Baltimore game, the Cincinnati game. I just don't understand how you go from one week to the next and have that much discrepancy in terms of defensive performance. I just don't see that. And then Tampa Bay went back to at least they made an adjustment because they went back to a run-heavy offense, and they ended up putting up over 200 rushing yards against you defensively. And they ran it down your throat. They owned the trenches. Jesse Minter said it's only a one-off if you allow it to be a one-off.
No excuses.
No excuses. I mean, I don't disagree with that sentiment. Get rid of it as fast as you can, but come back to play on a short week against the divisional opponent when you really need it. But Dan, this is part of the pairing of what happens when your offense goes 0 for 6 on third down.
Jake,
and your defense has to be out there a majority of the second half.
Jake, the drive for the Chargers in the second half, 3 plays, 6 yards. 5 plays, 18 yards. 5 plays, 14 yards. 2 plays, interception. 8 plays, 30 yards, turnover and downs. 4 plays, 25 yards, turnover and downs. 1 play, 4 yards. That's your second half. So sure, the defense wasn't put in a great spot, and so the wheels fell off more and more and more and more and more. Again, snowballs. But man, if we're talking defense, one of the things that this Chargers defense is supposed to be able to do, they have that shell. Everybody's supposed to have the communication on lock. You're supposed to do your job. You're giving up these massive chunk back-breaking plays to superstars. Mike Evans goes off on this team. 2 touchdowns, 9 catches for like $160 or something crazy. You saw a massive 54-yard run by Bucky Irving. I think
Jalen McMillan was a huge part of their offense as well.
Baker Mayfield scrambling for 20-yard explosive plays. I mean, they went anywhere they wanted to be able to get 288 yards of passing, 223 yards of rushing. Baker went 22 of 27, Jake, for 4 touchdowns.
That's a day.
With 2 turnovers, you wouldn't know it. They had 40 points with 2 turnovers. Not great. The Cam Hart, what I thought was going to be an interception, turned into a really bad, I think it was a concussion. Like, that's not good. That is not good. And to the caller's point, yes, there are some roster holes. We talked about that. Like, this Chargers team could use some more interior defensive line. Clearly, offensive line as well. They could use another running back. They could use another receiver. They could use another tight end. They could use more corners. Like, there's a lot of stuff they still need to fix. That being said, this was not the team we'd seen all season. And I think that's what's frustrating, especially on defense, if we're talking about that. And what is more perplexing to me is how a team that has arguably the best pass rushing quad in the NFL get absolutely nothing. It makes no sense to me how they have a combined, 4 pressures total? The entire team? Sorry, 5. Morgan Fox had 2, Tito had 1, Troy Dye had 1, and Khalil Mack had 1. That's it. 5 pressures. You got Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Tuli and Bud Dupree. Like, how is that possible? And the quarterbacks on this team are actually doing pretty good. So, like, you tell me how. Because either your cornerbacks are good, which they have been all season, or your pass rush is good, which on paper they should be. And again, this is one game. And again, Chargers defense has been pretty darn good all season. So again, put in perspective, this was one game, but a massive flop in one game. And so I give Jesse Minter the opportunity to kind of correct this. I expect this defense to bounce back. But we're just talking specifically about that game, ugly. And so a lot of this was, if I'm the coach, what the hell was that, guys? This is not us. I'm not even going to look at this tape. You know what you did wrong. All of you individually know what you did wrong. And you knew it immediately when it happened. Like what Jazir Taylor was doing on that fade route for that touchdown, don't ask me. The receiver starts inside, curls right outside, gets a pick play. We all saw it coming. Why he thought he needed to go underneath the route, underneath the block, no clue. Individual execution was horrendous in this game. And so do I blame that on the coaching? On defense, I'm not sure I do. Maybe the pass rush a little bit. But there was just blown assignments in one-on-one opportunities and islands that this team just got gashed over and over and over again. It's unfortunate. And that's the truth. Now, could I see this defense bounce back and ball out and make Bo Nix look like a rookie quarterback again? Absolutely. Absolutely. I can expect that because that's the reality we've seen usually against subpar offenses. But that game makes you question a lot of things. And again, to put in perspective, I think sometimes this Chargers fan base got a little over its skis with, oh, we're Super Bowl contenders now because we're 8-4. And what if we beat the Chiefs? Like that. Like, don't be prisoner of the moment. Remember what this team was when you started the season. Good and bad, stay even keel. Expectations for me, playoff game. They can get a win in the playoffs, gravy. Get to the playoffs, 10 wins. I think that's a success. Next voicemail. Got a lot of them.
What's going on, boys? I just stood up the fat one a minute ago and just watching the end of this game. We got owned today. That interior, man, is killing us. Herbert was getting harassed left and right. There's no stopping. I mean, anyone can run through the middle. Sure, I could run through that middle probably.
I mean, it is Vita Vea and company, but still.
It's tough, guys. Denver's winning. That's not helping. They're probably going to win. So here we go. Next week, on a short week, on Thursday, against Denver for a tiebreaker. Holy shit. It's going to be a little closer than I think. Than I like, I'd say. It sucks. Suck it up, and let's go next week. Bolt up.
What else can you say?
You can't really say much more than that, honestly. Truly. These are all things to be concerned about because Denver's got some mad dogs up there in the front defensively. They can get pressure. They're able to do it. You've seen what they've been able to do the last couple of weeks. Their defense has kept them in games over the past 2 weeks, despite their offensive deficiencies that they've had. We saw one game where the Chargers were able to do it, but more times than not over this past month, the offense needs to carry more than a half. And if they don't, and if you have performances the way that you had against Tampa Bay, it won't matter who's on defense. Because if you're out there after putting up an 0 for 6 on third down offensively, it's not going to matter. You do that against Denver with Bo Nix improving from your first matchup to what he is playing with now. Again, I don't care about a 3-touchdown, 3-interception day for Bo Nix. I don't care from the standpoint that they had to come back from behind to beat the Indianapolis Colts. I don't care what his final stat. It's not going to matter if you come out and you play the way that you've played over the last month. Because your defense can only carry you so far unless you are playing an extremely deficient opponent, which Denver is not. And now you have a divisional matchup that is pivotal on Thursday Night Football. In my opinion, it's a must-win because I don't want to back myself up into the last 2 games for the Chargers to have to win in order for them to get in the playoffs. And given the fact of what we have seen from this offensive inconsistencies all season and more so over the last month, when is it going to change? I get it. You're limited without J.K. Dobbins. I don't care. Figure out a way for the offensive line to block enough for a running back to find a hole. I understand that you are. No. I understand.
Jake Hefner, come on down.
I definitely. Those holes are already closed up. I ain't running through them. I understand that you're dealing with an injured quarterback with his second ankle sprain that he has suffered throughout this year.
Protect him.
Scheme it. God. Scheme it that way.
Thank you.
Why is it that we do not? I still do not understand why we don't run more screens, but it sucks because even the moment that we do, there's a penalty, and it
running
wipes
or
it off
manufactured runs do something.
It's not going to matter. So, what is the turnaround now going to look like on a short week when most likely you're not going to have Cam Hart due to his second concussion in the last month, which is very scary for him?
Yep.
Practice report came out today, Dan. Elijah Molden wasn't practicing. Tito wasn't practicing. Who are you going to have on Thursday? This is now on your defense, talking about your defensive injuries that you have. But again, what is it that you're going to do to be able to put up points? Exactly. You're 14 games in.
You got 3 left.
When are these inconsistencies going to be adjusted?
I hope it's against Denver. Crickets. Next voicemail.
Hi guys, I have a quick question. For next year's free agent guard class, which guards do you guys like the most? If you could rank them, obviously everybody knows about Trey Smith, but who would you like for the Chargers to go after?
Honestly, Jake, I don't know at all. Free agent class for guards. I have not even focused on that. I am solely focused on how this team can get to 10 wins. So I got zero answer for this right now. Do you have an answer? You can easily say no, and we can punt this till next time.
I mean, as far as ranking them goes, no, I don't have a specific ranking as it relates to how I would rank them in terms of priorities. But are you going to strengthen your offensive line through free agency this year? Yes, that's going to be the focal point because of the standpoint of what you need at other positions on the draft and more high priority. Your center class in the draft is not nearly as good as what it was last year. So I think if you're looking to make a change at center or at guard more specifically, both of those moves are going to be done in free agency. There's a few names
real quick, how do you feel if they go guard or center in round 1?
There shouldn't be a center taken in round 1 at all. Okay. So let's just wipe that off the board. Okay, there shouldn't be, given this class. If you go guard
in their feelings,
I mean,
whether or not it's for the right reasons.
Would it be my first choice? No. But in the bigger picture of things, given what we've seen from Joe Alt and the discrepancy between what draft selection that should have been at 5, you could pretty much say that, hey, I think they made the right choice there. And you could also understand a reason why if they ended up selecting a guard. Would it be my personal choice for number 1 where the Chargers are projected to draft? No, I wouldn't, given their needs elsewhere. But at the same time, you look at how poorly this offensive line has performed, wouldn't necessarily be surprised. But I definitely think that free agency, center and guard, is going to have to be addressed.
Guards.
In that. Not, I mean, do I think that you'll reinforce it in the draft? Sure.
Yes.
But not in the first couple of rounds. No, because you need plenty more help elsewhere at tight end, at corner, at running back, at interior defensive line, you name it.
Tight end, I think, is my current guess for where they go round 1. I think that would feed families. 3 more voicemails, Jake. Again, 323-902-7586. Leave a 30-second voicemail with your reactions, either pregame, postgame, or questions. We'll do our best to get to them.
What's up, guys? This is Matthew. Today was a horrible second half of the game. Not so good. Greg Roman, man, he took a year off last year, and hopefully you rebound this year, no coaching, offense. But listen, man, I mean, it's been a long-ass time. I mean, the whole season we can't score a touchdown in the first half or second half, and he can't. He's supposed to be a running back guru, but he's nothing like amazing right now. I don't know, man. Rick Roman, like, he can have good games, but right now, man, like this whole season, he can't put a good game together, man. So, and this team, man, they got to get their crap together, man, because if they play like this in the playoffs, this is going to be one and done. And then, so, it always sucks to see Justin Herbert not 60%. I would like to see him running the ball, but unfortunately he's hurt. And it's really frustrating, but we'll have to see what happens Thursday, man. But Greg Roman, man, you're letting us down, bro. I mean, for next year, I don't feel confident if he keeps doing like this year. And we'll have to see what's up, but we'll see what happens on Thursday. Thank you, guys. What's up?
Jake, this offense has scored over 30 once against the Bengals, 34-27. Other than that, they've scored in wins 17, 27 against the Titans, 27 against the Browns, 26 against the Saints, 23 against the Broncos, 26 against the Panthers, 22 against the Raiders. In the losses, 10 against Pittsburgh, 10 against Kansas City, 15 against Arizona, 23 against Baltimore, 17 against Kansas City, 17 against Tampa Bay. You scored 30 once.
But we never pictured this to be a high-octane scoring offense.
On the whole, maybe not.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to get at, because more so, this was going to be a traditional type of Jim Harbaugh built team. You go back to those first 2 weeks against what they were able to do offensively against the Raiders and the Panthers. It was Harbaugh and Roman-esque. It was run game, defense, run game, and you were able to execute. And everybody was wondering, what the hell is up with the stats with Justin Herbert? Are you literally just going to make him a check down secondary option? And again, I go back to what I said, and I still stand by this. I think after those two losses against Pittsburgh and Kansas City in weeks 3 and 4, and they had that bye week, getting guys back healthy, but also taking that week to recalibrate what they needed to do offensively, that was when you saw Ladd McConkey get more involved in this offense. That was when you saw Quentin Johnston get more involved in this offense. And you kind of filtered it back more through Justin Herbert. Now, granted, Justin Herbert was healthy at this point in time. Yep. He was able to use his own mobility to get a few third downs per game. And when he was hot, he was hot. But even still, you go back to that Cincinnati game, and a game that you had to score that much, because anybody remember the first half of the Cincinnati game? Because I do, and I remember everybody's reaction. I remember the commentators' reaction. Justin Herbert was on fire. The best that we have seen him look was in one half of football. Did you remember the second half? Because the wheels came off.
It was shoddy for a bit.
Thankfully for the Chargers, they were able to pull that game out. But you go back to the first time the Chargers played the Denver Broncos. You built up a sizable lead. You scored 3 points in the second half. Denver was able to mount a comeback and actually make it close. You've survived these one half or second half or whatever it is. You have not played a game of 4 quarters of football offensively all year.
And you're not even winning the way that you would, like, you're not winning because of the offense.
Right, which
you're just not.
You can look at that one of two ways. You could say traditionally that's not the type of ways.
No, because in a traditional Greg Roman offense or Jim Roman offense, Jim Harbaugh offense, you're winning on offense because you're maintaining possession, you're turning the clock, you're effectively running the ball, you're protecting the quarterback, you're winning time of possession, you're imposing your will. None of that is happening. Literally none of that is happening on offense. They're winning because the defense has been balling, and they are hoping that their defense and Cameron Dicker and Justin Herbert at times could be heroes. That's how you're winning.
That's more of what I was trying to get. They have found different ways to win games.
None of which because their offense.
And that's what I'm trying to say. Maybe outside of those opening first 2 weeks when you saw them kind of carry it at the end, and
you saw J.K. Dobbins do it at the end of that Bengals game.
Yes,
but
it's there. And hey, finding great ways to win is part in the NFL. Sure. Every team does it, and every team has those type of games where they need someone else to step up. But when you have 14 games of inconsistent offense, at some point, something needs to change. Something needs to be adjusted for you to get better, especially when we're talking about a potential playoff berth.
What's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results.
What's next? Next voicemail. Jake got 2 more.
Hey, I'm the fan with no face. What's up?
Oh boy.
Again. So I had work today because I work in sports broadcasting, and I had to work on a Sunday, which is a total downside of doing that job. Anyway, so I watched the game, taped, and I was watching it all.
Why, by the way?
Watching it all the way through. I was skipping the commercials, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I get to the third quarter.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
And Bucs go up 30-17. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, shit, this game's over. And trust me, if my girlfriend wasn't here, I would have sat through that whole shit. But because she wanted to hang out, I had to skip through it all. Because I was like, you know what? I'm not going to waste my time watching.
Good man.
Priorities.
He prioritized mental health and the
priorities
and the girl.
I like it.
I'm watching this goddamn fucking game, and instead hang out with my girlfriend, which is going to be a way better idea than watching the rest of the game. Turns out the game went 40-17. Listen, yeah, we couldn't do it. Yeah, I mean, I know Herbert was hurt. I get it. I'm really bummed out. Cam Hart got a concussion. He almost had that pick. That sucked. I don't know. I'm going to have to watch this back and figure out what the fuck happened. I mean, this team looked like nothing I'd ever seen before, other than the offense. The offense is, the offense. This offense is special.
This is where we're at, Jake, where, this is just another week. This is what the offense is at. So what are you going to say? What else is there to say?
With Herbert hurt, this offense is probably the worst offense in the entire league.
Cooked. Absolutely cooked. And it goes to the weapons, right? Usually if you have a hobbled quarterback, you got to be able to have somebody else shoulder the load. Who else is walking through that door right now other than Ladd and maybe Quentin? Stone Smart's looking good, but that's Stone Smart.
And I love this team, but seriously, I love Justin Herbert, and he's a tough motherfucker. And if you put anyone else in, it would be just as bad.
It'd be worse.
Bad, but I mean, it's unwatchable. Other than the beginning of the game, I mean, my hopes, of course, were up. But every other Chargers game we've watched this entire season, it's been like that. Where it's oh, they scored, and then we stopped scoring.
It's like Super Mario, Jake. You watch the Super Mario, he goes down that tunnel, comes back up. He never comes back up. He gets out of the tunnel. He
never comes back up.
He just stays there. It's where did he go? I thought I was playing. It's no, it's not frozen. The music's still going. The timer's going down at the bottom, at the top of the screen. Derp, 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 derp. Never comes back.
I think where a lot of the frustration comes from here, Dan, is, as we've said, the Chargers have found a way to win 8 games despite all the things that we have talked about, despite Justin Herbert being injured twice throughout this season, despite the fact of their lack thereof of offensive weapons, despite the fact of the bad performances on the interior of the offensive line, they have still found a way to win 8 games, which again, Dan and I go back to the X factor that's been missing from this team for so damn long was coaching. And I believe that Jim Harbaugh, Jesse Minter more specifically, have made a number of different corrections and big-time coaching. I was trying to think of the word, but more so just accolades to them for getting good performances out of free agent players and rookies.
Kudos.
On the defensive side of the ball. And that's what's given you a belief in the competitive nature of this team.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't escape the biggest issue that has befallen this team. Because again, I say some days they have been able to overcome those offensive inconsistencies and deficiencies. But more often than not, when you're talking about going up against the likes of Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs, possibly the Denver Broncos, who have a great defense, hell, you just went up against one of the not good, one of the worst defenses in the league in terms of points allowed and yards allowed, and they still hung up 40 on you, and you only scored 17. You weren't even able to make it a shootout because your offensive inconsistencies.
7 of them were because you got an interception by Tarheeb that gave you 20-yard touchdown.
So eventually these mistakes are going to catch up to you, especially when you play the better echelon of teams in the league.
Well, they are catching up to them.
Well, that's my point. Yeah. So over the past month has been the biggest blemish and the biggest spotlight on this team in terms of what they can or cannot do offensively, in terms of what they look like 1 week to the next, from one half to the next. How do you go from looking, even with Justin Herbert on 1 foot, to put up 127 yards and 2 touchdowns and move the ball the way that he was doing it in the first half to what you saw in the second half? And still go 0 for 6 on third down.
And how do you go from that admirable, if you want to call it, performance against the Chiefs in the second half? How do you look like that against them to then come out and look that bad?
That's the other thing.
So we talk about trends and looking at what this team is and what they're trending towards. Chargers fans, you tell me, what is this offense trending towards right now? And what is the defense trending towards?
It's not trending good offensively. It hasn't been trending good, and it's come to a head now. So we asked the question, what's next? You got Thursday Night Football against the divisional opponent, the Denver Broncos. Despite them having a rookie quarterback, they're still able to put up points. Despite their rookie quarterback having a 3-interception game against the Indianapolis Colts, they still find ways to win the game. And I'm telling you, this is going to be a much different game than the first time that the Chargers faced the Denver Broncos weeks ago, because Bo Nix has looked better. That offense has looked better. This Denver Broncos defense is, I'm telling you, since the Baltimore game, teams have figured out how to attack the Chargers defense.
Yep.
And when you do it in a way that you could score almost at will and put up points and have that offense for the Chargers be as inconsistent as it has, you can't afford one half of good football. You have to be able to put up 4 quarters of football and be able to find a way to put points. I'm not asking for touchdowns, but you have to figure out a way to put drives together and put points on the board. Because if
minutes
you don't,
or points.
Because if you don't, it won't matter how bad the opposing offense is. They're going to find a way to chip at you.
Yep.
And eventually it's going to dwindle down your defense, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be putting up points. And the Chargers are going to find themselves with another L on their record. There's a lot to clean up on a short week, and now it's crunch time.
Crunch time. We have some more voicemails. I think we'll try to get to those when we have our breakdown of the Broncos here. Jake, this is a frustrating one to watch, to go over, but I think we try to do our best to be honest and transparent for the good times and the bad. Call things out when they're great, call things out when they're terrible. Darth Dan, Jake Vader are alive and well. Welcome back to both of us, I guess. Hopefully the Chargers team can make us eat crow, can learn a lesson or two, can bounce back.
I'll shut up.
Handle adversity. Let's see. This is what the coaching staff is here for. Can they do it? We'll find out. Jake, anything else before we get out of here? I'm so ready to just flush this. Still hurts.
You heard Daiyan Henley. You heard Khalil Mack you heard Derwin James talk about their collective defensive performances. They know it's not good. But you got to flush this in a short week because you've had a month of this in terms of inconsistent performances, and it's not going to be able to carry you even against worse competition, because Atlanta was able to move the ball pretty damn well. And despite what your offense was not able to do, your defense kept you in that game. You can't survive going to the playoffs with an offense like this and being this inconsistent from one week to the next. Hopefully, over these next 3-week span, starting on Thursday, they're able to figure it out.
Hopefully. Lord help us if not. Again, thank you to everybody who called in with their voicemails on the Chargers Unleashed hotline, 323-902-7586. Phone a friend, have some fun, get involved. You could be on the next show if you'd like. Give us a call. Let us know your thoughts. We'll talk about the Broncos here coming up, but Jake, that's going to do it. Therapeutic, I would say, a little bit, but collectively, flush it. We're on to Denver. Let's see what this team can do. We'll talk about it tomorrow. For Jake, you can find him at Jake D. Hefner, myself at Dan W. Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Feel a little better, honestly. Feel a little better. But we'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed.